Hi, welcome to the Unwritten Book Summit. In this virtual event, I'm interviewing experts from the book publishing industry, as well as some self-published authors, to talk about their experiences writing, promoting, and publishing their nonfiction, especially business books. The interviews are pre-recorded and will be uploaded to my YouTube channel. So whether you're currently writing a business book or it's part of your 3-year or 5-year plan, you'll always have access to these videos. And I'm doing this summit as a promotion for my book launch. Unwritten, The Thought Leader's Guide to Not Overthinking Your Business Book officially launches on October 1st. You can pre-order it now through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, or directly from the publisher, Amplify Publishing Group. And now we're going to get to our guest. Minette Norman is an author, speaker, and leadership consultant who previously spent decades leading global technical teams in the software industry. Minette has extensive experience leading internationally distributed teams and believes that when groups embrace diversity in all its forms, breakthroughs emerge and innovation accelerates. Minette is the author of The Boldly Inclusive Leader. You can see that behind her in the video, and the co-author of the Psychological Safety book. Psychological Safety Playbook, sorry. Minette, it's great to chat with you. I really wanted to interview you because when I was figuring out how to publish my book about a year ago, you were so helpful in talking me through your decision process with self-publishing. And now that your book's been out for over a year, I'm super excited to check in with you to hear about how the launch has gone. I know you actually launched 2 books last year. I mentioned both of those books, so we can talk about both of them. But yeah, I'm super excited to get into it.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Emily.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Okay, so let's get to some questions. Let's start here. What was the motivation for writing your book, both books? And what has your experience as an author been like?
Yeah. Oh, such interesting and big question. So,
Yes.
what's funny is I always thought of myself as a writer. Like even as a kid, I wanted to be a writer. And then when I got into the tech world, I started as a technical writer. So I wrote for like 10 years. That's what I was doing. And all that time I thought, I have a book in me. I'm going to write a book someday. I thought that would be a fiction book because I'm very
Ah,
into fiction.
yeah.
Then, the years go by, I'm in tech, I'm in leadership. 3 decades basically go by.
Mm.
And in those last 20, I spent 20 years in tech, in leadership roles. The end of that 30-year career, 20 years in leadership, I realized I have learned so much about leading teams that I wish I had learned earlier in my career.
Mhm.
And I also see just how badly most people do leadership because they
Yeah,
don't understand what it takes to lead human beings. And I think I
right.
can help people with that. So now is the time for me to write my book. I actually started working on the Boldly Inclusive Leader when I still was VP of engineering at
Oh,
Autodesk.
wow. Okay. Yeah,
I
yeah.
outlined it back then, but I wasn't
Aha.
ready to write it.
Yeah.
So then when I basically kind of had a kick out the door, like I had to leave my job in 2019,
Mm.
figure out what I was going to do. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, well, now's the time to get my
Yeah,
book written.
yeah.
So, and it's interesting you mentioned self-publishing because I don't think of myself as self-published because purely self-published authors, hire their own editor or designer, go through all that.
Right.
And I was really clear I didn't want to do that. I actually wanted to find a publisher. And I
Mhm.
also learned that, it would probably take me years to get a traditional publisher. And I was
Right.
just impatient. I wanted to get my
Yes.
book into the world.
Yes.
And that's when I discovered the world of hybrid publishing.
Right.
It's what I
Right.
ended up with, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I signed this contract to do the Boldly Inclusive Leader with Greenleaf.
Mhm.
And then here's the weird story about how I ended up writing another book before that
Yes.
one came up.
Before
Because
that one,
this
which
is
is
like
the funny part. Yeah.
this is the funny and
Right.
and I would say ill-advised part, but that's okay. Like so
Yeah.
in 2021, when I was, working through the thinking about the Boldly Inclusive Leader, outlining it in more detail, I took a class, and it was an online class in running psychological safety assessments because I was looking for practical information, like how do I help leaders create a psychologically safe environment? I
Right.
couldn't find any practical information. There's all sorts of great academic research.
Yeah.
Anyway, this class was based on the research of Amy Edmondson from Harvard, who's
Mhm.
well known in the field of psychological safety.
Mhm.
We were learning her methodology for doing assessments.
Mhm.
And in that class, I expected now we'll also get like the how to. Now, what do we do after we run the assessment?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
didn't. We really learned
Oh,
how to run the
the
assessments,
assessment.
how to debrief an assessment.
Yeah.
One of the people in that class was this wonderful woman named Caroline Helbig, who lives in Bonn, Germany. And she and I just connected, and we were both kind of lamenting the fact that there wasn't any practical information. So it was funny, at the end of the class, she sends me this email with the subject line crazy idea. And she said, like, Minette, you say there's no practical information. I am saying the same thing. What if you and I put together our
Mm,
decades and decades of experience and we wrote something? And we originally
wow.
planned it to be something we would give away for free to our clients.
Mhm.
But instead, it turned into this playbook. And that was the thing we were like, well, maybe we'll self-publish it. You
Mhm.
know, it seemed bigger than just something to give away.
Mhm.
But someone I met said, I need to introduce you to someone I think wants to publish that. And that's how I was introduced to the co-founder of Page Two Books,
Uh-huh.
Jessie Finkelstein. And
Uh-huh.
she said, we want this book. So I ended up with two books, both coming out in 2023. The
Yeah.
Psychological Safety Playbook came out 6 months before The
Right.
Boldly Inclusive Leader,
Right.
and two different publishers. And I'll tell you why that is. This is maybe an interesting factoid
Yeah.
for writers, is that the Psychological Safety Playbook is by design incredibly short. We
Mhm.
wanted it to be the shortest book possible. And it basically, and still useful,
Right,
right? Like
right.
short but
Short and
useful.
useful.
And it's 15,000 words. And
Oh,
as you
wow.
know, as a writer,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
like,
yeah.
kind of the minimum you usually think of for a business book is 45, 50,000.
Yeah.
And I talked to Greenleaf and I actually said, well, I have this other book that I'm working on. What would a minimum word count be? And they were like, 35, 40,000 words. I'm like, okay, that's not going to work. And Jessie Finkelstein from Page Two said something very interesting, which is like, we don't care how long it is. We think this is a category defining book.
Aha.
So
I
she,
love
she
that.
wasn't, I love that too.
Right,
And this
right.
beautiful job on, it looks like a full length book. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
the illustrations and everything that Carolyn did.
Right, right.
So that's why I ended up with two different publishers, and different experiences with both of them, and good
Yeah,
things to say about both of them, just
yeah,
different.
yeah.
But anyway, so that is like how those books came to be. And the minute basically we handed in the manuscript for the playbook, then I sat down and cranked out The Boldly Inclusive Leader. And I think
Yeah.
it's because my writing juices had gotten flowing again,
Yeah.
right? Like I had
Yes.
not been confident I could write a full-length business book. And then
Hmm.
once I finished that, I'm like, I'm in the groove now. And
Yeah.
I basically locked myself in for 6 months and wrote the thing.
Ah, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Goosebumps, goosebumps. There's so much here that's just I really want to unpack. Thank you for the distinction between self-publishing and hybrid. I like that.
Yeah.
So I usually think of hybrid publishing as you're the author, you're self-publishing it, they're walking you through the process, they're helping
Yes.
you with it.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right that it is, you are working with a publisher and it does feel like, I feel like a rock star. They're like, here, we're going to take care of this marketing piece for you, and here's the email to send. Like they do help take care of a lot of the things that if you're truly self-publishing on your own, you would have to figure out, right? Hiring
Yeah.
somebody to do the cover, like all of these separate things.
And that sort of project management aspect of like finding all the resources, coordinate. I was really clear I didn't want to do
Me
that.
too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That
Yeah.
was also my thought. And I also was considering traditional publishing at one point and said, "Oh, I don't want to go through that long process. I don't want to
Yes.
write a book proposal. I didn't want to query agents. That all sounded
Exactly.
terrible to
That's
me."
a whole other journey that I was
Yeah.
like, I don't have time for this.
Right. Exactly. And that's what most business book writers think. I think there's a very few of my clients who I say, yeah, this should be traditionally published. And usually it's because it's more of a memoir. I could see it being more on the big screen, or they have
Yeah.
something very, very special. But like you said, you can still write a category defining book with a hybrid publisher with self-publishing, right? Like there's
Exactly.
absolutely no limitations that come from not having a traditional publisher and agent. So I think that's
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
really
And
cool.
I think that that's something that I didn't know much about before, and I've learned a lot about
Yeah.
since. So
Yes. I mean, clearly working with two publishers, you've learned enough to, yeah, yes, I can't wait to dig into this and hear more. And I also love that, you started that book after The Boldly Inclusive Leader and it actually came out first. And that's the power of having a co-author and having somebody who's saying to you, like, we can do this. Like, I'm sure you both pushed each other
we
when you were
did.
feeling like, oh, I don't know, there's a lot going on. I'm writing this other book, and then,
Exactly. And
yeah,
Carolyn was so sensitive to that because she's like, I don't want to take you away from this other book. And then
yeah,
she very gently said something like, what if we set a little deadline for
I
ourselves,
love
right?
that.
And it was like just a little
Just
deadline,
a
like
little
we'll each
deadline.
write a couple of paragraphs and then we'll share them. And
Right.
like that's how it started. And you're right,
Yeah.
it was just such a joy to work with someone else.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
writing can, as you know, can be so solitary and
It
lonely.
can. Yes. And then to hear that it really boosted you to finish the other book. I mean, that's just, yeah, best case scenario. I think that's really
Exactly.
awesome. But yeah,
Exactly.
I love that story. Yes. Can you share some of the successes with both books, that the ones that you're most proud of? I'd love to hear.
Yeah, the one of the things I was not aware of is how many book awards programs there are,
Yeah.
and in fact, Greenleaf basically entered the Boldly Inclusive Leader for a bunch of awards, and
Mm,
Page Two did not. Like they now offer that as a service, but they didn't
mm.
then. So I said to Carolyn, like, there are all these book awards. I'm going to enter the playbook also.
Yeah.
So what I was unprepared for is how many awards both books have won.
I saw the list
And
on Amazon. It's amazing.
it's pretty,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm proud of it. It's something I'm
Yeah.
proud of. And
Yeah.
I think for the Boldly Inclusive Leader, what I'm most proud of in terms of the awards was that the National Indie Excellence Award, the book won in the leadership category for
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah.
And that to me is a big one because
Yeah.
it had also won book excellence in the diversity and inclusion category. But I feel like I think of this book as a leadership book before being a
Right.
DEI book. So I was
Yeah.
really proud of that for the Boldly
Yeah.
Inclusive Leader.
That's
And then for the
amazing.
playbook, I think maybe we're okay. What we're most proud of for that book is that it has found a global audience that we
Mm,
never expected, and it
yeah.
sells. Honestly, that book sells like hotcakes.
Wow. It's amazing. That's
And I think,
amazing.
part of, one of my learnings, and this was actually, I don't know how much you're getting into this, but like the Bold Inclusive Leader is a hard copy book that's, it was printed. There was a print run and it's a physical book that has to be distributed over the world.
Mhm.
Whereas the playbook is a print on demand book. And in some ways, for us,
Mm.
that was really important because we are international. Like she's in Germany, I'm here, and we
Right.
wanted the book to be simultaneously available everywhere.
Right. Right.
So the only way to do that was actually print on
Ah.
demand. If we had had physical inventory, it would have come out like 3 months later in Germany. So
Oh,
we
I
wanted it
see.
worldwide availability on day one, and
Wow.
that has been really successful. But I think for us,
Aha.
two things success, that I'm most proud of for that. One is Get Abstract last year for 2023. You know how many books Get Abstract goes through because that's what they do. They're in the book summary business.
Hmm.
Our little playbook, our little 15,000 word playbook won the Learning Impact Award for Get Abstract. And they
Aha.
flew us in for an award ceremony. I'm like, that
Oh
was
my
pretty
God.
amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then I would say another thing is that, and this is specifically for the playbook, so many people who are consultants and trainers and in-house trainers said, we want to teach this material.
Mm.
And we didn't quite realize that there was going to be an audience for that. So we're running our first ever certification program based on the psychological safety playbook. And we now have a waiting list for next year for the next cohorts.
Oh my
So
gosh.
for the success to me is like this is spreading the work, and that's what it's all about. It's like
Yeah.
it's not about being on the New York Times bestseller list. It's how do we get this work in the world. And
Right.
so I think we are doing that with that book, and I feel like I'm doing that more and more with the Boldly Inclusive Leader. So I
Wow.
feel
Yeah.
on when you go down this route, you don't know where things are going to go.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like in some ways now, and we're more than a year into both books. It's like the momentum seems to be building rather than dying down. And I think that's something I didn't understand because there's so much we put into the launch of the book.
Yes.
And
Right.
to me, it's
Right.
like it's the sustaining momentum and how
Yeah.
people you may hear about the book a year after it comes out. And it's like it's
Yeah.
got a long life. These books are timeless in many ways.
That's right.
So
That's right. Yeah, yeah. And that's the beauty of writing a big idea book. If you
yes.
had written something that was, I don't know, more technical or more specific to your audience, or, something like, it wouldn't have had near the reach that this has happened for you. And I just love how there's so many unexpected surprises. I mean, you didn't plan any of this. You didn't think, okay, we're going to write this playbook and then we're going to build a cohort, or we're going to
Right.
license it. Like, that wasn't in
Right.
your plan. That just came organically. That just happened, in the moment. And I think that's
Exactly.
gorgeous. So yeah, this leads into the question I was going to ask you next. What doors have these books opened for you? What has publishing these books done for you and your business? So you've already mentioned with the playbook, but maybe you could talk
Yeah.
a bit more about the Boldly Inclusive
The Bold
Leader.
Inclusive Leader. Yeah.
Yeah.
So And I knew this because, I've been working with the Speakers Bureau, the Lavin Agency
Right.
for several years.
Yeah.
And David Lavin said to me when he first met me, you need to write a book. And
Mm,
I had all sorts of insecurity about that and
sure.
doubts of like, could I do it? Would I do it? And he said, once you have a book, people will just want to get the author of the Boldly Inclusive Leader in to speak. And that's what's
Yeah.
happened. And so I get many more speaking inquiries. I do workshops based on the book. And here's what I think is an amazing success. When I launched my business in 2020, because I had spent all my years in tech, I thought that all of my clients would be tech companies, software
Hmm.
companies, because that's who would know me and that would be my network.
Yeah.
What the book has unleashed for me is like clients from all sectors and industries, and that would never have found me had I not been an
Right.
author. So, for
Right.
example, I've done two speaking engagements at universities now. That's certainly those books were door openers. And
Yeah.
maybe the most unexpected, I've done like stuff for government agencies, and
Hmm.
the one that got me the most, like I feel like this is incredible, is that was it this year? It was this year, earlier this year. I flew to Washington, D.C. to give a keynote based on the Boldly Inclusive Leader for the leadership of Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security. And that
Wow.
to me is like, this seems impossible. And the fact that they were interested, and it was like, I had, of course, my biases of like, who's going to be there? Like an incredible group of leaders,
Mm.
150. They bought
Wow.
they bought copies of the book for every
Yeah.
leader.
Yeah. Yeah.
They asked amazing questions, and I felt like, I
Yeah.
mean, I got goosebumps being there
Yeah. I'm
because I
sure.
feel like the impact of a book like this
Yeah.
on, that.
Yeah.
So for me, it's fueling my business, and
Sure.
I'm the worst the business, like I'm the worst business marketer ever, because business just kind of, I let the business come.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough to have it come.
Yeah.
Of course, I reach
Yeah.
out to my network and I post on LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
mostly things come to me either through a
Yeah.
connection or through someone on my website who said, I read your book and
Right.
would you do a workshop or a talk? And
Yeah.
that's what I love to do. So I feel like I'm not trying to scale, like I'm not trying to hire
Mhm.
staff and scale a business.
Mhm.
It's really me. And then, of
Mhm.
course, my partnership with Caroline on the other book. But
Yeah.
as much as I want to do, I get to do now. And I think that's
Yeah.
success for me.
That's amazing. I love that. I think you're a brilliant marketer. I think, you're doing exactly what you need for your business, and that's such a good lesson because you don't necessarily need to do outbound cold calling, all of that stuff, especially when you have a book. Because you're
Exactly.
right that Amazon is a great search engine, right? People go and they search for leadership books and probably every day, and
Exactly.
so if your book is ranking, then people will come across it
Exactly.
and they'll
I should
yeah.
say one more thing because you just made me think of something
Yeah.
about book marketing specifically, which
Hmm.
is that when Carrot said, because the first book was through page two,
Right.
and they didn't have a lot of marketing services at the time. I know they've expanded what they do,
I
but
see.
they did this great thing because Carolyn and I said, we don't know anything about book marketing. And so they referred us to Becky Robinson's group, Weaving Influence, and she's
Ah,
incredible. And
okay.
we worked with her, and I highly recommend her to any of your clients, for example, who want help with book marketing. But one
Yeah.
of the things that she shared with us is she said the least expensive, most impactful book marketing tool is giving away physical copies of your book.
Mm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I took that to heart, and we took that to heart. And so I do use my book as a marketing tool. And often I'll
Mhm.
meet someone, for example, I'll meet someone on LinkedIn, or I'll meet someone who gets referred. And I just say, I'd be really happy to send you a copy of my book. Sometimes
Yeah.
they want an ebook or they want an audiobook, and I have free codes from Greenleaf for the Boldly
Ah,
Inclusive Leader.
yeah.
But I love just sending out a signed copy of my book. And that often, it leads to
Yeah.
business, or someone just reads
Yeah.
your book and they give it to someone else. And you
Yeah.
never know where that's going to go.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I say in my book, there's a camp of people who say you should write a book and only give it away. It's your business card.
Uh-huh.
But I think there's a middle ground, right? You don't have
Yes.
to be a bestseller. You don't have to sell
Right.
25,000 copies of your book, especially a business book, for
Yeah.
it to grow your business. But
Yeah.
you do want to think about it strategically. And, if there's somebody out there who could become a client, why not send them a book? Like that's
Exactly.
that's that's that right there, you can count that price the $20 of your book out of the,
Ex
out of the services that they're paying you,
exactly,
or
exactly. And
or
we get just the cost of the book is really
yeah, right,
inexpensive for
exactly,
authors,
exactly.
right?
We're not even paying 20 the full
It's a few
price. Yeah,
bucks, right?
right,
So yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah, so I
Or,
always have like I'm just looking across my office
yeah,
here. I have a bin
yeah.
and I've copies of both books there that are just ready to ship out
Ready
whenever.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, me too. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, or you're creating a course like you did with the playbook, right? And
Exactly.
then the book goes with the course. So there's just so
Exactly.
many ways that a book can help you grow the business. And I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
all of these
Yeah.
examples. It's so great.
I was oh no, it was in June this summer. I was invited back to my last company, Autodesk, and this was kind of like full circle.
Yes.
Um, uh, and it was the CIO's team. They invited me in to give a talk on the Boldly Inclusive Leader, and they bought copies. And like, there's a picture of the CIO and me, and I'm like, I never thought this was going to happen, that I would be invited back to my last
Yeah.
company, and like that
Yeah.
also just felt really good.
So amazing. Oh my gosh, I love this so much. So you've shared a lot about your journey and a lot of your advice. What do you know now that you wish you'd known before you started down the road to publishing your book? So for a new author, what would you
Yeah.
say? Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things I totally underestimated, and I alluded to it earlier, is like the writing the book and the launching the book is just the beginning. And you
Mhm.
put, I mean, of course, you put your heart, your soul, your sweat equity like into all
Yeah.
of that. And I
Yeah.
know you, Emily, right now, as we're recording
Yes,
this, are
I'm in the
less than
middle.
you're in the middle of that launch
Yes.
period, which is
Right.
intense,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
And so here's what I would say is like celebrate that launch, like really, really celebrate it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and acknowledge that it took a
Yeah.
long time to get to this and it took a lot of effort, and you're just beginning. And
Yes.
it's not a
Yes.
year-long journey, it's the long marathon, right?
Right.
So pace
Hmm.
yourself,
Yeah.
and also just realize that, like, you'll probably get, as most of us do, if you do the effort, you'll get those banners on Amazon for the launch, like, best first in the category, and it'll
Right.
last for a little while and then it'll go away. And then you start to, I mean, I don't know if you're like me, but I look at numbers incessantly. And
Yeah.
like, I just can't, don't be discouraged when your book drops in the rankings. It may come back up. Mine has done, both books have done amazing things in terms of like, it
Oh,
can go
yeah.
rank go down to like 300,000 and then come back up to 30,000. You just never know.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Really
your
interesting.
book
Yeah.
ranking will change. Don't worry about that. Don't let that be
Right.
the measure of your success.
Mhm.
Measure it in terms of the people who are sharing about it, who are bringing you in
Yeah.
to speak if that's your thing, or consult, or
Yeah.
whatever that
Yeah.
is. And even the people who just say, I loved your book.
Yes.
That's
Mhm.
that
Yes.
that to me just, or it changed my life, or I
Yeah.
cried when I started reading it,
Yeah.
all of those
Yeah.
things. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
I wish I had understood that. And then there's another lesson that I've learned, like really over this last year, which is that when I don't know if you've thought this, when I was writing The Boldly Inclusive Leader, I looked at everyone who was writing books on inclusive leadership and I thought of them as my competition. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
damn, like Gina Cox got her book out before I did. And,
Right.
I'm not going to get any readers and whatever.
Oh,
And
yeah.
now Gina Cox and I know each other. We've been on panels together. What I've learned is that there's room for all of us.
Hmm.
There are readers for all of us.
Uh-huh.
And no, none of the books are the same. And we
Yeah.
all bring,
Yeah.
you have to bring yourself to the book. It's like it has to.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
David Lavin said, write the book only you can write, Minette. And that's what I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And there will be readers who will connect with my book versus Mita Malik's book or Gina Cox's or all these other inclusive
Right.
leadership books.
Yes.
And the other thing that's really wonderful that I've learned, not only are they not your competition, they may become your friends and allies. And I'm part of this group called the Authoress Group. And it's, I don't know how many hundreds of women are in it, all female authors. And everyone is so supportive of one another. And I've also met
Uh,
many male writers who are
yeah.
very supportive. We're
Yeah.
always like helping each other, sharing knowledge. So don't feel like this is a cutthroat business. This
Mm,
is a community of authors.
mm, mhm.
And everyone, like, remember when you reached out to me and I'm like, I will tell you everything I know
Yes. Yes.
because other authors told me everything they
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And like, why
Oh,
not pay it
yes.
forward? So I feel like
Oh,
that was
amazing.
something I wish I had known.
Yeah, yeah, that's so great. Oh, it warms my little book launchy heart over here to hear all of that. It's gonna be okay.
It is going to be
It's gonna
okay.
be
And yeah,
okay.
there are many people who are
Mhm.
there to support. Like as I said, like the writing part can be the solitary and lonely lonely part.
Yeah.
But once you have this book, do not
Yeah.
feel like you are on your own. There are people
Yes.
out there who can help you, whether you hire someone like Weaving Influence or you talk to
Mhm.
another author just to pick their brain and
Yeah.
like we are
Yeah.
here, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. I've found that people are so generous, so willing to chat about it. And yeah, I've experienced even the people who've read early copies of my book and their comments on it and willingness to write blurbs and such
Yep.
sweet messages and yeah, it really bolsters me and feels like it's good that I did this,
Yes.
it's great. So I love that. Oh, this is so positive. This is so great. I can't wait to share this. Thanks so much, Minette. I really enjoyed this conversation. Really wonderful. I think your story is a great example of what a book can do for your business. So many great examples. I've written some notes down, and there's so much here that I'm going to share with everybody in the notes, the show notes. If you're a keynote speaker, having a book is a wonderful complement to the work you're doing, like Minette shows. So many opportunities come from being a published author. If you'd like to get in touch with Minette, you can invite her to speak or chat about working with her, chat with her about working with her. Her website is MinetteNorman.com, and you can order the Boldly Inclusive Leader there. You can go to Amazon and order it. But I highly recommend the book. I read it. I was an early reader about a year ago, and I just love the way you weave the examples in with the lessons. I think it's really a well put together book, and I'm excited for other people to read it and so happy for your success. This is just awesome.
Thank you, Emily. And I wish you huge success with your book. I'm
Thank
cheering
you.
you on. You know
Thank
that.
you. Yes, of course. Me too. All right.